Welcome to Fireside Chats, Leadership Journeys, brought to you by the Office of Academic Clinical Affairs and hosted by Dr. Carolyn Porta. These chats bring together University of Minnesota Health Sciences students with experts for candid conversation on leadership, career pathways, sources of joy, and strategies to rejuvenate.
Welcome to this Fireside Chat. I'm Carolyn Porta. I serve as an Associate Vice President here in the Office of Academic Clinical Affairs at the University of Minnesota. It's a pleasure to host these Fireside Chats to invite leaders who are willing to share about their lives and their lived experiences. Tonight, I have Miss Molly Portz with us, and she will introduce herself. She will kick us off just sharing a bit about who she is, and I think we're in for a very fun conversation. So, Molly, tell us what you'd like about yourself.
Well, hello, everybody. As Carolyn mentioned, my name is Molly Portz. I use she, her pronouns. I am the Assistant Vice Provost for International Programs at the University of Minnesota, and my office is the Global Programs and Strategy Alliance. We are the university's central global programs office. I am also currently serving as the Interim Director of International Student and Scholar Services. So we are the office that support international students and scholars when they come to the university. We support them through their time here to make sure that they are meeting all the criteria to maintain their visa status. And we also have student engagement programs that really help them become part of the fabric of the university. I actually started my career, I've been at the university for 23 years. I actually started my career in health sciences. And so all the work that you guys are doing is very near and dear to my heart. My first job was as a media relations specialist. So I was in charge of going out to all six health science schools and colleges and writing stories and producing press releases about, exciting clinical things or research that was being published in journals. And it was a really great way to get to know all the exciting things that happened at the university, and also really deepened my appreciation for how lucky we are at the University of Minnesota, and frankly in the state of Minnesota, to have all six health science schools represented at the U. I mean, I just I had no idea until I got there and started kind of learning just how rare it is and what an amazing value it brings to the state.
All right, thanks, Molly. You've given me a few things that I could certainly launch from. I'm going to invite interns to put comments or questions in the chat, and I'll monitor that. So this is their chance to dive into areas of things you share and let me know where they want to go. You are global. You are everything global. Share one of your best favorite silly or crazy stories of your global travels with some of the university colleagues, leaders. We don't have to name them, but I want you to share a story or two.
Okay. Well, I could think of one story where we were visiting a interdisciplinary site that was we were in Uganda. As many of you probably know, we have a lot of the health sciences has a lot of activity in Uganda, in Kampala, around Makerere University, and then from that work, there are sort of sites throughout the country, and we were in Uganda. There were other visits that we were going to make, and we realized while we were out at this site that was on the coast of Lake Edward, which is, I believe, all the way to the west of Uganda. It actually, if you look across the lake, you're actually looking in the to the DRC, to the Democratic Republic of Congo. And we realized that it was actually going to be more work to drive all the way back to Kampala. To fly, we were headed to Rwanda, which was just like shares a border with Uganda and was just a border away. And so, kind of at the last minute, we decided we were going to do an overland car trip. And so we got a car and a driver, and we got to do this just kind of amazing drive through the hills, like the hills and mountains of Uganda over into Rwanda. Because it was a land crossing, we had to actually get out of the car and like walk across. We couldn't drive. We had to just like walk across from Uganda to Rwanda. And then we hopped back in the car and drove all the way into Rwanda and to Kigali. And it was probably a 7 or 8 hour drive. And it was just amazing to see just all the things that you see from a road. Like you don't get to drive that much. And so to see the roads, to see the people on the roads, to see them in their yards, to see them in their villages, was just it was just so eye-opening, and it was just such a lovely way to sort of be introduced, certainly to Rwanda, a country I'd never been to before. And so yeah, that's actually one of my favorite memories.
Oh, that's lovely. I like that a lot. And I know you have many, many more stories. Um, I'm going to go in the direction of your PR and your marketing.
Okay.
I think about these interns, and I think about the diverse skills that they're building as part of this project. And I also think that there are skills we sometimes overlook when we are doing our technical preparation and training, and when we're diving deeply into getting these degrees, we don't think a lot about PR. And I have always, almost intentionally, had a guest or two that can speak about those pieces. Are there any just short list of suggestions or things that you think they could do well or work on, knowing that at some point in time they will be interacting with press, they will be possibly trying to write a short piece describing the work and the amazing stuff they're doing. Give them a few suggestions based on your
So I
successes and maybe your failures.
Sure. So I think that it's likely that you students are in a place where, because of the work that you're doing currently, you're doing a ton of learning, you're doing a ton of reading, you're doing a ton of interacting with professors and professionals. And I think it's really common that the urge is to demonstrate to them how much you know. And so that could be by using really technical terms or explaining things in the greatest, most complicated details. And and while there is absolutely a place for that, and that is, likely in your professional circles, I think one of the best things that you can do for your profession and for kind of promoting the work, the really important work that you're doing and that you and that the university is doing, is by being able to tell the story of either what is happening or why it's important in the simplest, most common language possible. So imagine yourself, I don't know, like at a gathering of your family or a gathering of your neighborhood. And so there's all sorts of people with all sorts of backgrounds. And your job is to kind of explain to them, like explain to your grandma, for example. We used to say, if you can explain it to your grandma and she understands it, then you're halfway there. And it is, again, it is something that it's important, again, to police yourselves when you are talking to a broader audience, what we would maybe call a lay audience, to be able to explain things in the simplest terms possible. Because actually, we all know that you guys are all very smart, or you wouldn't be in the programs that you're in. But it sometimes can take even more, a greater mastery of the content to be able to explain it in the simplest way possible, to be able to use short phrases, to be able to tell your story or the story of the work in, 3 to 4 sentences. That is really something that it's never too early to start practicing that, and I would highly encourage it. We're coming to the time of the year where people might be gathering for celebrations, and it's great practice to talk to, people in your neighborhood, people in your circles, people in your family, and just keep kind of honing your ability to tell your story in the commonest language possible.
I like that a lot. It is something that we do not work enough on, and I'm thinking that might need to be a side little effort related to some of these projects. We have our executive summaries, we have our abstract paragraph, but to have that 3 or 4 quick sentence, clear sentences, little bullet point things is really, it's
It's really an elevator speech.
mm-hmm.
And it's called an elevator speech because it's something that you're should be able to tell somebody in the time that it takes to ride an elevator. And so, yeah, 3 to 5 sentences.
Mm-hmm. Mhm. Yeah. So my mind went to the picture of one of the tallest elevators in the world and how much time I would have, Molly.
Yeah, but most of us aren't going to be riding those elevators. Most of us have about 4 floors.
Oh, okay, 4 floors.
Yep.
4 floors worth. That's your charge. Go practice that, people. Definitely go practice that. Molly, you have leadership titles. Talk to me and talk to us about leadership. Is it something you sought out? Is it something you fell into? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Talk to us about leadership.
Well, I do have my titles do imply some leadership. And it is true. I'm in charge of some things. Um, but I would also say that one of the reasons I think that I most definitely I fell into this, and one of the reasons is because I think um, my bosses saw me leading from sort of a lot of different places. Yes, there are titles that assume that you are in charge of things, but really there is an opportunity to lead at any stage that you are in your career. And and that can be something that you can do and not want to assume more responsibility. Because in my case, being a leader means that I'm just basically in charge of more things. And that can be fulfilling, that can be professionally fulfilling, but you can also lead from place. And so um, I do, I think people should always be thinking about their opportunities in place to be leaders, which might mean that you're leading by example. You're either working hard, or you're soliciting other opinions, or you're kind of intentionally making sure that people are feeling included. It can mean that have ideas, that you bring forth ideas for the ways that things could be done better. You see a process and you say, you know what, I actually think maybe we could do this better. I mean, that all of those things, I would say, are leadership characteristics. And so, when you get to the leadership job, when you have leadership in your title, it's really all the things you have done in all the places you've been in your roles that sort of come together and are a culmination of those traits that you then just maybe have an opportunity to exhibit on a bigger scale. It's not like you just get a leadership title and it sort of turns you into a different person. You're
Mhm.
still, you're still you still have the opportunity to use all of the traits and the skills that you developed along the way. In fact, you would have had to have done that, or you likely wouldn't be somebody that they would choose for the job.
Exactly. So say more about falling into it, and thanks for the hand claps there. Say more about falling into it. I don't what you just described is not falling into it from my perspective. It's that you were stepping up, you were saying yes, you were volunteering ideas, you were doing things. Um, and then I can see your point if you mean, well, say more about falling into it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess when I say falling into it, because I didn't, you know, when I think about the people, you guys on the call, um, you have a pretty good idea of what you'd like to be doing, or you wouldn't be in the professional schools that you're in. I was not that lucky in terms of, oh, I really want to be a nurse, or I really want to be a public health professional. I was kind of just Carolyn mentioned, I started my career in public relations and communications, and that's what I was trained in. Um, but then I just found that there were other things that were also interesting to me. So um, I just reached out and went for them. So, I was a media relations specialist when I started my career at the U. And then I had a lot of ideas. And then I became the media relations manager, um, possibly because I was performing well in my job, um, and because I had some ideas of how we could do the job better.
Hmm.
So, yeah. So Carolyn's right that some of it does come from just kind of naturally growing in your craft, and then aligning yourself with opportunities that kind of support the next phase. And it's interesting because I do think sometimes the next phase comes a little bit sooner than you think you might be ready for it.
Hmm.
But I'm here to tell you that that's actually okay. That it's okay if, like, I think back to my first like manager job, and what was a little bit challenging for me is I started managing people that were once my colleagues and coworkers. And that was a little bit bumpy because I did think that suddenly things had to be so much different. And in fact, they didn't. They didn't have to be so much different. And I sort of over imagined what it would mean to manage people. So if you're not sure if you're ready, chances are good you are probably ready. Because if you waited till you were absolutely sure, you would be so bored in the job that you're in that you'd be you'd be dying for something new. That is one thing that I do think is important to know is it's very common to feel like you're never quite ready for that next step. But chances are good that you are, and you will always, always, always be learning something. It's not a good idea to be in a job that you're not always learning something. even when you're the boss.
Mm, I agree. What's something you're learning right now, Molly?
Well, I'm in this interim ISSS role. And so, as I mentioned, international, first of all, is there anybody on the call that has interacted with the ISSS office in any way? Okay. So you then most of the work, 80% of the work that the ISSS office does is to make sure that students that are here on visas, non-immigrant visas, are doing what they need to do to maintain their visa status. It's real serious and it's very important to it's something to take very seriously. Well, I really don't know anything about the details of immigration. And so one may say, well, how is it then that you ended up being the interim director? Well, the truth of the matter is I knew enough. This is a unit that has been part of the GPS Alliance for a very long time, and they were needing uh, a leader. And so I said, sure, I'll take the helm. But what I'm of course learning a tremendous amount about immigration because but I would be learning things anyway, but there are a lot of things, a lot of changes happening in that space that are causing us to have to ask a lot of questions and to potentially change some of our processes and things. And so I'm just learning a tremendous amount about all of that. And I'm also reminded that it is always a good idea to not make assumptions about what people know, and always a good idea to ask clarifying questions. Because if
Mm,
you've got the question, the chances are probably pretty good that somebody else has it. And sometimes you don't want to ask it because you don't want to appear to be the only one that doesn't know. But in truth, it's just so much better. It's just so much better if you ask whatever question that you have. Because again, as I mentioned, probably somebody else has it, but also it helps people understand like where everybody is in the room. Like where are we in terms of one of the things that I do work really hard to do is never make assumptions about what people know. You can always say, you probably know this, but on the chance that you don't want to
hmm
insult anybody, but I think it's always better to err on the side of letting people not making assumptions and kind of starting at ground zero than jumping in and having some of your audience not be with you. So I'm learning a lot about the importance of asking questions. And from content, and the content wise, I'm learning a tremendous amount about the immigration system of the United States.
I like that. And I imagine that it is a super interesting space right now, given some of the various decisions and changes and just everything that's been happening lately. I am grateful for one that you're in the role, in both roles, and in that office for the university. Molly, you come across pretty level-headed. What happens when you're not?
Well, I usually swear a lot. Not something I'm proud of, but I do a lot of swearing. Um, and yeah, that's probably it. I mean, I do get excited. I'm an excitable person. I get excited even when I'm not. I'm an enthusiastic person. But I don't usually lose my cool. it just isn't, um, yeah, it's just not really how I'm wired. But
I have never seen you lose your cool.
I will swear, I will swear. It just makes me feel better.
The research on swearing changes probably every other day, but the latest I've read that I'm latching on to is that the intelligent swear frequently. So there's that. It's a
I mean,
sign of intelligence.
it can't be something, well, I mean, it also can't be something, a word that you're using over and over again, because then it is like, well, certainly you can come up with a different adjective. Certainly, I mean, you can rack your brain to find some other way to describe a situation, even if it is frustrating.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I have not. I have never seen you in a space where you have lost your cool or not been just the amazing human that you are all the time. Do you thrive in chaos and crisis? Some people do, and some people don't.
I would say that I I'm not like dying for a crisis all the time, but I am somebody that is very comfortable with ambiguity. And
Hmm.
that has actually served me well because and that is something that I think right now I'm putting into my comfort level with ambiguity is coming in handy, particularly with all of the changes that are happening in the immigration space, because we simply don't know. We simply don't know what is going to happen. And that is just a really uncomfortable place for most humans. And so, in, when we don't know, the urge is really to like want to do something, to figure something out. And the truth of the matter is, we don't know what to do because we don't have all the information. And once we have more information, we will know what to do.
Hmm.
And just kind of talking people out of their trees about really just like wanting to just do and do and do, and we should be thinking about this and thinking about that. And really, I certainly contingency plans are do have a place, but when you're just kind of spinning about things that you don't even when you don't even have any information, I just think it's not a great use of people's time and energy. But I've just seen firsthand in this in with this whole with all this immigration stuff, just how challenging that is for people to really just not know and have to wait, um, and be patient. And that's a really that's a really testing that really tests people, um, and makes them feel like there's not a lot that they can control. And I just happen to be really comfortable in that space. And so it's just maybe just at the end of the day makes me a little bit less anxious. But I think, and I've always said this to people, I've hired a lot of people at the university. And one of the questions I always ask is, how well do you tolerate ambiguity? And sometimes I often have to describe what that means because a
Hmm.
lot of times people don't necessarily know. But I've always said the more tolerant you are of ambiguity, I think just the happier you will be at this institution because there are a lot of things that the answers aren't altogether clear for. Whether it's whether it's a process, whether it's who actually gets to decide this.
Hmm.
It's not always clear. And I think the more you can sort of lean into that and not have it stress you out, I think just the happier and more content you'll be.
Yeah, it's making me think that I want to marry a couple things here and get your response to them. So, on the one hand, you yourself are really quite level-headed. You are a leader very comfortable with ambiguity. You can certainly strive to hire people who will have that persona, that capability. There are many people you work with who will not handle ambiguity well, who do want to fix something, do something, busybody through the stress and
Yeah.
through crisis. What are your best strategies and tools for either collaborative work with those people who are quite different from you and or your influence to change them, to snap them out of that if you need to?
Yeah. So I think it's really hard to snap somebody out of something, you know? And so rather I would say that rather than try and make them be less concerned with or anxious about things that they cannot control, I often think about how of sort of listing with them, sitting down and listing the things that we can control. Like,
Mm,
what can we do? What can we do right now that could maybe prepare us better for, whatever the future state is? Um, and give them jobs that really sort of help them lean into their strengths. Um, I'm actually a big believer in strengths and the strengths finder.
mm,
And I do think that we do, and for those of you who don't know, strengths is a test where um you take there's four different quadrants and you come up with like five sort of leading themes. And they're in executive executing, relationship building. Um, we just did it as a group, which is why I'm thinking about it.
mm,
Relationship building, executing, influencing, and something that has to do with like strategic thinking. And
mm,
the whole point of the evaluation is that really people have they the premise is that you have a greater chance of becoming better at your strengths than trying to waste your time being,
mhm.
becoming better at the things you're not strong at. So I like to see my whole team and figure out like where do we have complementary strengths, and then sort of lean into those a bit more.
Yeah.
Um, I do think that recognizing it also goes back to recognizing the value that people who are not like me, who don't operate the way I do, the value that they bring to the team. Um, So I don't necessarily want to get completely bogged down in the details, but
Mhm.
my God, am I happy that somebody does, that somebody on my team is really gonna get down to the nitty-gritty. And when I get a little bit maybe frustrated that we're going into the weeds right away, when I still feel like we should talk about things at more of an elevated way, or at an elevated level. Sometimes I can redirect it, and sometimes I can say we don't have to get to the details right this minute. But at the end of the day, it's so important to have that strength on a team
Mhm.
that I'm usually like, okay, we could talk about the details. And then you can sort of redirect them to talk about something that is not the detail. But at the same time, the details then in the conversation might spark another idea. And so then you're back to the brainstorming phase, which I think, yeah, that's kind of how I like to, and I also do try very hard to um, acknowledge and praise the contributions that people are making to the team.
Mm,
Not everybody brings the same thing, And there are jobs that seem maybe a little bit more out there and are and get perhaps a bit more a bit more FaceTime or a bit more sunshine, but man, they're all the jobs are important.
Yeah,
Making sure to acknowledge them is I just think is a really good practice, whether you're the leader or the colleague or whomever.
I agree. You're giving a lot of different just tips and suggestions and also evidence for the way you lead, for your style. And I think any one of us listening would be delighted to be on a team with you and to have that sense that our individual strengths are valued and appreciated. And I agree 100%. I also have that perspective of leaning into strengths and not being ignorant to weaknesses. Be aware of what you're not great at or what some of your potential threats are, but generally leaning into strengths is such a positive way of living and being and leading and being a team player for sure. Okay, we have a little bit more time. We have a lot more we can talk about. There's a question in the chat to me, and I think we're going to go there, Molly, and
Okay.
we'll just put it out there and see what you think. And I am acknowledging fully that I am a woman asking a woman this question. Earlier in the conversation, you were giving examples of ways that you participated as an employee and as a team member. And much of the things you did were part of your paid job. Certainly, there were probably things you did that were not explicitly because you were being paid, they were extras. And maybe those extras in part contributed to people seeing your potential for more, whether it was a formal leadership role or, your potential for more. At the end of the day, somewhere along the way, you are making choices to step up and to say yes. A lot of women in any academic role, staff or faculty, in any role anywhere in the world, really do tend to step up and say yes for a fair amount of things. And in the academic environment, there are times where we're saying yes to the unrecognized labor where it relates to promotion or potential for promotion. And I'm asking this really believing it's regardless of whether you're a staff or a faculty. I recognize that there are different criteria, there are different job lanes and all of that. So, how do you think about, Molly, the opportunities that you choose to say yes to, knowing that, knowing generally and broadly as a society, as women in society, what we tend to do? Do you have any thoughts about this dilemma? We talk about it a lot. We hear a lot of people talking about um, the volunteers and the just the maldistribution sometimes of the busy work or the unrecognized labor. So someone raised that question. I think it's a fair one.
No, I do too. And I do think it needs to be something that is um openly discussed. Um I I will say that I didn't I I actually am somebody with um so so I am not a faculty member. Um and so I feel like as a faculty member, I don't know, I can only speak to this experience as a staff person because I have not walked the road of the tenure challenge and just the immense pressure that um all faculty are under to publish and to do community service and to do all these things. So I I can just all I can do is just share my experience, which is that I am um, somebody with a lot of boundaries. And so I really only said yes to things um, that I truly wanted to do. And there
Hmm.
were times in my life that I ended up saying yes more often because I actually could. And then there were times in my life where I couldn't say yes for a variety of reasons. Um, and that was really okay with me because the trade-off for me was that I got to participate in other parts of my life that were not work that were really meaningful. Um, and so I think maybe one way to come, to come, I don't want to use the word combat, but it really is. I mean, I do think it is a sort of universal worldwide problem, is to is to normalize the idea that everybody does, some of the labor, that there's actually like turns that are taken or that you
Mm-hmm.
formalize the process a little bit more. So whatever it is, whether it's as simple as taking notes at a meeting,
Mm-hmm.
you
Exactly.
know, you rotate that among everybody in the meeting so that all the participants are taking notes or everybody is setting up the meeting and uh, whether that means whatever that means. But that it isn't just and I do think there is a hesitancy for a lot of people that feels very formal. Like, wow, we're going to do this. This is so much work. We're going to set up a Google Doc and make people sign up and all the things. But no, I think um, it does speak to recognizing that everybody needs to do their part. And I think it is a step towards equitably sharing sort of you know, those that extra work.
Yep. Yep.
I don't know that that's a super satisfactory answer, but yeah, that's been my experience.
Well, I loved that it was a very practical, concrete suggestion on how to make things better in a multiple mixed gender scenario. Say it, yes, we'll leave it there. There are things we can do, and it is a struggle, staff role, faculty role. It doesn't really matter. These challenges do present themselves and probably will for a while. All right, I'm going to rapid fire a few things for you to think about and to answer. What is one skill you wish that you perhaps had worked on or achieved earlier in your life?
I would say the acknowledging my own agency in a situation. So for example, like I was professionally raised up in a time where it was like just do your work, be quiet, get it done. I worked really hard. You guys all have to work hard. Okay. Well, I will have to work hard. That is a very real assumption. But when you've got 15 things being barked at you and they all sort of have to be done at the same time, it is okay to turn around and say, I'm hearing you. You've got all these things that you need me to do. Please help me understand what the priority is because there's no way in hell I'm going to get all 15 delivered at the same time. And so you as my supervisor, help me to prioritize or help me to put my energy where the priority is.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I think you can say that in a very sort of polite and unassuming way, but it's a very valid question that I was just really afraid to ask for a longer time in my career than I should have been.
Yeah, I love that. Agency, just forthrightness,
Right.
really having the courage to speak up, to clarify something you said
Absolutely.
earlier, right? Also, just clarifying questions, all of those things are just demonstrating who you are today, probably not who you were a while ago when you first started. All right, Molly, you just did your master's degree. You certainly know where these students are at a bit. They are just starting their careers. It's an interesting time to graduate in this country into a workforce. What's one encouragement or suggestion you might have for them?
Well, I would say that A, don't despair, and B, it it's not exactly fair to say that it's going to be all right. And it seems like it is not at all something that I mean in a patronizing way, but it is something that you simply know when you're older. It just it's like you may graduate and not have the job the job you were dreaming of, but I promise you, it will lead you to something else. There will be something else. You will either meet somebody else who will introduce you to a job you want to have. Um, you will find perhaps a network of colleagues that are going to support you for the rest of your career, even if you don't end up working together. And so I would say just work hard to try and get employed and realize that it is not the only job you will have forever. And that if you're not, the hardest thing is to get the first job. And if you can land your first job, which I believe everybody on this call is well on their way to, it you will get another job. You will be on your way and it will be okay.
Wonderful. All right, two more.
Okay.
What's your go-to for relaxing? Is there a go-to?
So I really like to walk my dog, and I really do like to watch television. Um, I also do a lot of listening to audiobooks. I have grown so accustomed to having somebody read a story to me, and I'm absolutely addicted to it. I love it so much.
And that led me to my other final question with respect to favorite audiobooks, favorite podcasts, favorite shows.
So I would love to get into podcasts. I just, for some reason, they seem like a lot of work to me, which of course I know they're not, but committing an hour, it just is like the nice thing about an audiobook for me is it's just like it can be 20 minutes there and 15 minutes here um and so I would say that I probably don't have a favorite audiobook, but one that I've listened to recently that was very good is a book. It's just a popular fiction book. It's called Tom Lake. It's by an author named Ann Patchett, and Meryl Streep does the narration.
Hmm.
And I think Meryl Streep hung the moon. And so Meryl Streep, for those who don't know, is a kind of a beloved American actress. And the story is just about a family of cherry like farmers in Michigan during the pandemic.
Hmm.
Nothing super exciting happens, but just the way she tells the story, I just was in love, just in love with the whole thing.
Thank you. And thank you, Molly, so much. We have a compiled list of recommendations from our various guests that the interns or anybody can peek at from time to time, and that book will be on it.
I just really want to tell you how happy I've been to spend this time with you and how much I really support what you're doing and believe in your futures. And thank you. Thank you for all the work that you're doing.
Thank you so much, Molly.
Thank you for listening. Let us know what you gained from this conversation by writing a quick review. Please share this podcast with others, subscribe for future conversations, and check out our other episodes. Explore health sciences at the University of Minnesota at health.umn.edu.